going back 40 years when I had my first transplant, going back 20 years ago when the eye bank collared me to be on television with Dr. Kazarski and talk about transplants, and then they talked me into being on the board of directors, and then talked me into being head of the eye bank when it got into a little trouble. So it's rather personal. It's something that I think is just absolutely an incredible opportunity that I was given. I was able to retire from Bank of America after 25, 30 years in business. And I was enjoying myself on a horse farm and having a good time. And why could I have a good time? Because I could see. I wouldn't be able to do all the things that I did in my life, working as a banker, working as a CPA. Fun, you're dealing with numbers all the time, but I could do it because of people like Dr. Castroviejo. I don't know whether you all have heard that name before, but Castroviejo is who I refer to as the godfather of corneal transplant surgery, or at least successful corneal transplant surgery. One thing I want to reemphasize is that this year is the 100th anniversary of corneal transplant surgery. 100 years. I got an email from the head of the Kidney Foundation, and he was talking to all the members of the Georgia Coalition on Donation, and he said, this is the 50th year celebration of the first transplant. Well, I emailed him back in about 30 seconds. Not so fast, Ace. It's been 100 years in corneal transplant history. So it's been an amazing ride. And I'll tell you a little bit about the differences that I faced 40 years ago versus what I faced a couple of years ago. As I said, I'm really going to talk from the personal side of this, talk from the heart, tell you about what I've been able to experience as head of the eye bank. And bottom line of all of that, being an accountant, you know, you always get to the bottom line. It's been a blessing. It's been an absolute blessing. I could make billion-dollar decisions in banking. There was a lot with it, but it was somebody else's money, you know, so I didn't have to worry about it. I did worry about it, and I did a fairly good job in banking, but after I retired, I had the opportunity to work full-time with the eye bank. Figured, well, Bank of America has, you know, just thousands and thousands of employees. It has thousands of branches. I'm going to work for the eye bank, and it'll be a piece of cake. I'll do it with half my brain, one arm tied behind my back, and it was Kazarski. I got another hero, Hank Edelhauser. And Dr. Lee is on his way to being somebody else's hero. I haven't worked with Dr. Lee other than through the eye bank, but these people are heroes. But what about some of the other people that are heroes behind the scenes? Just from personal perspective. When I had my last transplant, I've been the head of the eye bank for maybe 5 or 6 years. And when I finished the surgery, all I wanted to do was hug Alan Kazarski. You're a hero. My God, my surgeon did it for me. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm head of the eye bank. We have something to do with this. And we have a couple of people here. You may have met them. We have a board in the back which tells you a little bit about corneal transplant surgery. But we have Jennifer Smith and Sarah Shirley who have joined us. And I'm not sure whether any of the other eye bankers could make it. We operate with a very small staff. We operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Except on leap year, we don't even get that one off. So we go all the time. And when I talk about some of my heroes, the people that work with me in the iBank are also my heroes. How many iBankers are here? The two that I named? Why don't you guys stand up? Now I'm supposed to tell you a little bit about the business of Georgia iBank and what we do. And, you know, for the record, we have a mission statement that says we recover, we process, and we provide donated human eye tissue for surgery and research, as you've heard throughout the day. We also provide training and education regarding donation. Both are very important because without the donor, nothing happens. Well, it may happen with the alpha cores and the others sometime in the future, but for now, and during my lifetime, and I expect to live for quite a while, we're going to need iBanks. And the iBank provides tissue to approximately 1,000 people a year. Now, I thought that iBanking, as I mentioned before, would be easy. There are times when I go home from the iBank, and I know Jennifer and Sarah go home, and they're just, you know, so tired they can't see straight. They've been up at 3 o'clock in the morning because people don't die between 9 and 5. And we have to recover tissue immediately to have the best outcome of corneal transplant surgery. So we could be working all day. We could be working on a Saturday. This isn't work, guys. This is fun. But there are people at the iBank that are working right now. And they're making sure that the 1,000 Georgians who need corneal transplants each year have tissue. And as long as we have donors, we will provide people the tissue they need for their corneal transplants. As I get into the business side of this, I should mention that, well, I should do this because Signe said, you've got to tell them you're a 501c3. Now, what is that? That's not for profit. And actually, we're designed to be that way. There are some businesses that are not for profit, not designed that way. We are, by law, a not-for-profit. What we are allowed to do, as many of you know, is charge a processing fee that replaces some, but not all of our costs. The processing fee is generally paid by insurance companies. And I won't get into the technical details, but it should be a pass-through. Medicaid or Medicare made it a pass-through, which means that we're not in that big book of listed reimbursement amounts that they turn out for every different medical procedure. They said, this is a charitable organization. This is one of the biggest bargains in the world. And any one of you who have had corneal transplant surgery know you'd pay 10 times what you had to pay for our processing fee. But we are a not-for-profit. We love what we do. And at the end of the week, when we're dead tired, and we say, why did I do this? Why am I doing this? I could be out riding my horse, playing on my motorcycle, doing whatever I want to do. And out of courtesy for this group, by the way, I didn't ride my motorcycle to work here. I figured, you know, you wanted to see somebody who was pretty, you know, at least somewhat businesslike. But we go home at the end of the week. And like the end of this week, about 30 people had corneal transplants this week. Why did I do it? Why did Jennifer work morning to night? Why is Sarah Shirley here now and and working all week? Because we have a mission. We have a commitment. And that commitment is to provide 1,000 Georgians with a gift of sight every year. When I go home and I say, wow, 30 people this week, what a feeling. This is a guy that works, that has worked with numbers, a banker, and at the end of my career, I was given the opportunity to serve as an eye banker, to help people, not to play doctor, because these guys know I can't, I was watching these slides and I was going, and I think it was about 2 minutes into the slide presentation when I finally took a breath, so it was pretty interesting. But I had this opportunity to serve, to give back. And I'll tell you what, it's the greatest opportunity in the world. A little bit more about the eye bank. I said it's a not-for-profit. Now, many of you who receive corneal transplants or receive tissue from the eye bank have to wonder about what's the quality of the tissue? How does an eye bank operate? I also thought that was a fairly simple process until I got into it. And you never know until you've been there doing something how difficult and how committed you have to be to making sure that we provide our recipients with the highest quality tissue. The highest quality, the highest. Everything we do at the eye bank is centered around quality. Now, when I mentioned not-for-profit, many people have a visual impression of a not-for-profit as being a sleepy sort of, come in when you want to go to work and leave when you don't want to go to work. I've already explained that doesn't apply to us. We're nonprofit because the law requires us to be nonprofit because we deal in donated human eye tissue. Those of you who got the cornea transplant or have had the DLEC procedures, I know if you're anything like me, you don't wake up one morning without thanking God for that donor. And that's what we need. I know there are some of you who have named your corneas, but I won't go into that. So the fact that some corneas are named after a motorcycle, I just don't want to name it. And it wasn't me. It was not I, should I say. But the eye bank isn't a sleepy not-for-profit. Think of it this way. It's an FDA-regulated medical devices company that has to meet Eye Bank Association of America accreditation standards. So we are an FDA-regulated medical devices company without the ability to make profit. Now, why is that important? Well, eye banking is a tough business because usually when you're running a business, and I don't want to get detailed about business economics, but the laws of supply and demand. You have a supply curve and you have a demand curve. Anybody that's taken economics says you want to run your business right where supply and demand intersect. Well, we don't control the supply of donated human eye tissue. We encourage it, but we don't control it. We try and educate people on the benefit of donation. We don't control it. And the demand for tissue. We don't control that either. We don't know who's going to need a transplant or when. And when you're trying to run a business where you can only keep your inventory, I think Hank mentioned 10 or 15 days. Really, surgeons want it within 6 days. that really creates a problem. We can only keep an inventory for 6 days, and we can't control supply and demand. Anybody who got into this for the money has got to be crazy. Anybody who got into it for the love of what we do, that's us. We really enjoy that. I want to talk a little bit more about what iBanking was like when I had my first transplant, and compare it to what it is today. And I'll do this in summary fashion because I'm watching my watch here. I got 6 minutes, right? 40 years ago in New York City, one of the largest cities in the world, I went to Dr. Castroviejo. My parents, when I went blind in college, they said, we're going to get you the best that we can get you to. Well, we lived right outside of New York City, so that was relatively convenient, but it wouldn't have mattered. They would have gotten me to the best. He said he'd fix me up, and he sent me home and said, you need to be 2 hours from the operating table. You need to be 2 hours. Now, luckily, I lived within an hour in New York City, so I could go home. Other people had to camp out around the city, had to stay there. And I had to wait over a month for a donor. And, you know, I was a college kid. What did I know? I was okay. I was having fun. My parents were really anxious about the whole thing because they realized the importance and the severity of what I was going through. But we waited a month. Then we went in for the transplant. And, you know, you have no time to get ready for it other than a month. But, you know, you get that call and you hit the road and you get in there, you get on the operating table, and Dr. Castroviejo is there without microscope saying, I'm going to take care of you. So you did. Then I spent 28 days in the hospital. 28 days. And I don't know whether you notice, if you look closely at the square graft, you'll see these little holes around the periphery, 4 on each side. Well, that's where he sewed the graft in. And when we're talking about microscopic stitching material now, or whatever it's called technically, I am convinced that Dr. Castroviejo sewed my cornea in with clothesline. 28 days. And then not only that, he puts it in, I had 16 stitches, count them. He put them in, and then he slams a pressure bandage on it. So it's sort of like taking, well, let me take this handful of sand, throw it in your eye, and go like that for 28 days. Well, thank you very much. Things have progressed. Thank goodness.
Still got it, though.
And I still have it, and he's a miracle worker. Then, after 28 days, guess what? Second operation. And back then, you know, now they give you your operation, you don't see the needles coming or anything else. Back then, you're waiting through the whole thing. So you need a whole second operation with all the needles to numb your eye, and they take out the stitches. Now, enough about that. Let's go to the current one, which, for those of you who haven't had a transplant, don't remember a thing I said. Just forget it, because it doesn't exist anymore. But for those of you who are looking forward to a transplant or have a recent one, you walk in. It's outpatient surgery. You walk in. They greet you. You get ready for the surgery. You walk out 3 or 4 hours later. And that's only because I stayed around to talk. I mean, as Alan's sewing me up, he's talking to me about how I had to contact somebody for a new board appointment. He's talking to me about board recruiting. But that's what it's like. And it's so neat. It's so incredible. I went back, I wouldn't tell the staff that I was having this because I didn't want to freak them out. So we used a fake name on our surgery board. The name they chose was Mr. Pain. And I said, is that a reflection of what your office thinks of me? And they claimed Mr. Pain was the brother of one of your surgical schedulers. I'm not sure I believe it yet, but that's what they claim. So I had the surgery, and that Monday, that surgery was what, Wednesday? Monday I was back in the eye bank. We had a technical meeting in the lab, and you know, I'm standing around and just doing my thing. And we told the staff at that time, oh, by the way, you want to see a recent transplant? Oh, yeah, well, take a look at Bruce. And that was it. So the productivity, you're back in shape. You're not hurting like you did 40 years ago. Does it hurt? Sure it does. Does it hurt much? Nah. I've hurt myself a lot more on a motorcycle or a horse than I have in that surgery. But it's really come a long way. And the other thing is, you schedule a time when it's convenient. So if you need your surgery, actually I scheduled mine the week after a board meeting because Alan said, well, we're going to be pretty busy, we're doing this, let's do it the week after the board meeting. And I, like any other recipient, scheduled my time through his office, and on the day of surgery, the hour of surgery, the eye bank had provided that tissue to his operating center. And I had my surgery. I didn't have to wait around. I didn't have to go through the expectation, what's going to happen? Will I ever get a cornea? You get it when you need it. And if we don't have it, we find it for you. And if you can't pay for it, it's going to be free. Because I make sure of that. Contributions make sure of that. They help with that. Anybody in Georgia who needs a corneal transplant will get a corneal transplant. Now, the other interesting thing is the technicians don't know about free versus fee. So they provide the best corneal tissue and match it to the recipient as best they can, the recipient's needs. You know, you're not going to put in an 80-year-old tissue and a 6-month-old that we have scheduled for next week. That's an extreme example, but we're going to match it, and it's going to be based on the recipient's needs, the doctor's recommendations, and not on ability to pay. Because charitable organizations, donors, recipients have all helped with that, enable us to give away the tissue when people can't afford to pay for it. It's another good feeling that I get, and quite frankly, I think every donor gets. When I say donor, I should say financial contributor. Financial contributor, but the donors, now this group isn't going to be a good cross-section for donation. And I'm not going to hit you up for money today. I do that enough. But the donors, getting back to them, is where it all starts. When people make that wonderful gift, that unselfish gift that allows people like you and me to see. It's just absolutely incredible when people do that. And if you can encourage your friends and family to do that, I mean, it's a wonderful thing, and I encourage you to talk to people about donation. Having run out of time, I do want to conclude with a couple of remarks. The eye bank, just in general, is very, very concerned about quality. I mentioned that before. We only, doing all this, have 21 full-time people and some volunteers spread around the state to do recoveries. We're not talking about this monstrous bank, Bank of America. We have very few people working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sometimes we feel like we work that 24 hours, 7 days a week. But we have in shifts, so 20 people is not a lot to give the gift of sight to 1,000 Georgians. Did I mention highest quality?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. We talked about doing 1,000 transplants a year with highest quality tissue. I didn't mention that, did I? I didn't. Okay. But that's what we're all about. We're about providing the best quality tissue we can on a scheduled surgery basis and doing the job the best we can for people who need corneal tissue. Now, the other side, or not the other side of the equation, but one other important aspect is what Hank does. Research. When we take the front off a corneal tissue, sometimes it doesn't qualify for surgery, so it can go to research. The poles, which are the other parts of the eye, go to research. There is no waste. We try and get the best available use out of every piece of donated tissue. So that's what I think is incredibly important. Did I mention quality? All right, I'll stop that. In wrapping this up, because I know we're all getting hungry and Signe's going to yell at me if I go any longer, I talked about heroes. I talked about Viejo. And many other people talked about Viejo. He was incredible. This eye, 2020, that was Viejo. This eye is Kazarski. I just had a visit this week, 2015. Pick your heroes. Thank you.